Hey everybody, I'm Justin, and today we're going to talk about compost. Our compost system consists of 3 bins, a bounce house blower, and some 2-inch PVC pipe. And right now, all the bins are full, and today we're going to empty one, so we'll see what the construction of it looks like once we get it emptied. But this bin right here has been sitting for 90 days. Each bin holds 30 days worth of poop. We got 3 bins, and so we fill for 30 days. Then it sits with air going through it intermittently, which we'll talk about later, for another 30 days. And then the air gets turned off and it just sits for 30 days. So this is the middle one. It's at the 60-day cycle. And this is the one that just finished filling. So it's got 30 days worth of fresh poop in it. And you'll notice it looks a little bit different. The other ones have a bit of a crust on them, and that's from sitting in the sunshine. But that once we get underneath the crust, you realize that it's actually some really good compost underneath there. Hopefully. We haven't had a lot of rain this spring, and the moisture content is very important to the composting process, as we'll talk about. But we're going to find out. So we're going to get the tractor pulled around here and the manure spreader and get ready to move some compost.
All right, now that we've got this bin opened up a little bit, let's talk about what we've got. The biggest thing we have is we don't have enough moisture in this bin. That's our bad. We're not the best at watering them. An easy way to water them is to just dump your water buckets from the barn, dump them into here. We don't get that done, being honest. But if you see this nice gray stuff, that's what we want to see a whole bunch of. This is actually the decomposition process happening. And I'm not sure how well you can see, but like where we've got the gray stuff, this is basically dirt. When we spread it in the field, give it about a day and it'll look like dirt. We get a variety of sort of decomposition. We've got the top layer that's not so much. And then going in, we've got more and more decomposition as we're going down. This bin is actually really good. And like I said, when this gets out in the field, give it a day or two and it'll be good. The interesting thing is, so this is mostly hemp with the shavings mixed in well. I'm not sure how well you can see it, but on the back side of this bin, we have some shavings that were dumped on the top at the end, and they're not broken down at all. And that is the joy of shavings and why we try not to use any more shavings than we absolutely have to. Most of them in our bins come from one stall that doesn't cooperate with the hemp bedding well. She's just a super, super wet horse, and so she's difficult to bed on anything. She's one of those. And then we bed in the horse trailers, we bed in shavings. So we may have cleaned out the horse trailer or something, considering I can't remember what I had for breakfast this morning. I don't remember where I put the pile of shavings on. But that is a great example of how difficult it is to break shavings down and why they're not great for your fields.
A quick note on equipment. We do use the ABI 50 for a manure spreader, and while it is a more expensive piece of equipment, the difference between this and some of the cheaper ones is that it has 2 rows of teeth, or whatever you want to call it, that chop up and create a finer bit of poop that we're spreading out on the fields. So you can get a lot of different brands. I'm not married to this brand, it doesn't really matter, but understanding the difference between the single row of, I don't even know what they call those things, thrashers or whatever, and then the double row is the big price difference between the cheaper models and the more expensive models. It also has a variety of gearing for how fast you want to pull your vehicle, how fast you want it to spread. You can go thin, you can go thick, and things like that. For our tractor, just because I'm excited about it, because we haven't had it very long, we do have the Kubota L3301, and the backhoe attachment on this has been the back saver for us. We've shoveled these compost bins out by hand for years, and this year we finally decided that we're not doing that anymore. So it has been a great labor saver, and we are enjoying playing with the tractor too. It's a lot of fun. All right, let's get back to it.
Okay, so what we have here is something that happens every time we empty the compost bin, and it's that Justin digs up the aeration pipe, and then Erica has to dig it out. So what you'll see here are holes, and they look like they're filled with stuff, but they are to some extent, but the air still pushes through. What we'll do is show you this once we've got everything cleaned up and we've got the bin emptied and how we put it back in. You'll also see there's a bunch of hay where he dug it up. That's because we put a layer of hay over top of the pipe, and that helps the air blow through on the whole process. So again, we'll show you this once everything's done and everything's cleaned up at the end, and how we set it up to reset the bin. Okay, so we have the bin mostly emptied. Now what we're going to do with these bits that are hard to get out with the backhoe is we'll take the end of this one, put it on top of that one. There's a few reasons we do this, and one is we're coming out of the dry season, so it doesn't look like it. But normally our bottom layer is pretty squishy from rainwater hitting it. We could have designed these a little better and not had that as a problem if it had a roof, but we didn't, because as you can see, this is made out of lots of bits of things that we had left over from the farm. We bought railroad ties and we bought PVC, but this is just leftover fencing, leftover bits of board. The barrier here is a broken gate, which who doesn't have those around the farm? So we've got a broken gate in the middle of this one. You know, we just basically took all kinds of different stuff we had at the farm to make these. So you may ask why we're using the backhoe as well, when most tractors come with a front end loader, and it's that we built these before the tractor, so they're not wide enough for the front end loader. So if I was building them again and I knew I was going to have a tractor, I would probably make them wide enough for a front end loader so you could just kind of drive in and scoop. There's commercial designs for them that involve laying a pad of concrete, and then you do like a trough that your aeration PVC lays in, and then you cover that with wood, like planks of wood, and that lets you come in with your front end loader and just scoop. Since we did this on the cheap, none of that happened. So it definitely works. It's physical labor. It's a lot less physical labor than it was. But you may be asking, why do we do it? We have the spreader. Why don't we just clean into the spreader and then spread on the fields? And there's a couple of reasons. One, especially with shavings. If you put it straight on the field, you're actually depleting the nutrition in your field. The field has to put carbon and nitrogen into the shavings to decompose them. So by pre-decomposing them, you're taking less out of your field spreading it. The other thing you do when you spread straight is you put all your parasites from your stalls, all your weed seeds from your hay and your grain, all of that goes straight out into the field without any decomposition. By doing this, we reduce weed seeds and parasite eggs to 0. They can't handle it. We're also reducing our bulk. You may not be able to tell on the first one when Justin showed it earlier, but it is nearly to the top, and there are times that we will even heap it. Just as today was a good day for us to empty it. So this one right here, this one was actually heaped when we started, and now a good guideline is the boards back here. It is already down to the second board. So we've reduced the quantity of material as well. By the time we spread it, it'll be down 3 boards. So we reduce material that we're putting on the fields as well. And composting is just, in general, it makes a better material to go onto your field so you get better stuff. Why do we air it? Well, this setup would be very cumbersome to put air into. And the traditional way that you put air into compost is you turn it, which would mean that basically once a week we would come in here and we would turn. Not easy to do with ours, and so this is what's called aerated static pile composting. It's what most commercial composting places use. So like if your local trash goes to some place that composts, this is how they do it. A little fancier than this, but basically it's aerated static pile. And the reason you do that is, you may not be able to see on this thermometer, but on composting thermometers, you have, what they have is yellow on this thermometer is too cold, and then you have green, which is the good zone, and then you have red, which is too hot. What aerated does is keeps it in the hot or even past that zone. Now, if you don't have air blowing through, this is where you risk setting your manure pile on fire. But by blowing air through, you can keep the decomposition up, and you're blowing off the alcohols, which are the reason that these catch on fire. So we want super, super hot because it kills all the things. It gets really good bacteria and then fungus in there. Fungus is actually what we want. And it just does all kinds of good stuff to really, really, really heat up your piles. So I'm a bit obsessive. I'll be out here all the time with my thermometer, putting it in various parts of the piles to see where they are. Once they start to cool, that's when we know they're ready for spreading. So this is, we're about ready to put our PVC pipe in. We'll just empty this one out a little bit over onto here as a little crusty layer on top, and then we'll get our pipe in. Okay, so I've got everything out of here I want, and then Justin typically gets a little deep, so lately, since we've gotten the backhoe, we leave a little bit in here to make the ground come back up to normal level. So then I'm going to take this pipe, which we have not glued in, and I'm going to put it back in. So you saw that it gets dug up in the process. That was true even when we did it by hand. So definitely don't glue this part, but you do need to glue this part so that it stays where it's supposed to. Otherwise it comes undone, and that can be a problem. So we take this, we actually have the holes spaced, can't quite tell, but they're a little closer together this way than they are this way. And so we put the closer side on the bottom so the holes are less kind of packed in. So we just take, set it in, set it down. Make sure that it's decently supported underneath. If it's not, I just kind of shove some more stuff underneath it so that it's got All right, a little bit about the setup of the bins from the equipment standpoint. We have a commercial bounce house blower. We went through a couple different options. Commercial bounce house blower is the way to go. It seems to last the longest for us. We typically get about 2.5 years out of one, and they function all day, every day. So the bounce house blower is connected to basically a sprinkler timer, and they go off for 2 minutes about every 2 hours. We played with that a little bit to get the right combination of time on to get good temperatures, but not blowing too much of the moisture out. So for each scenario, you kind of have to play. And unfortunately, you get the answer a lot later. So, you set up a bin and you don't really get an answer to how your stuff is doing until about 3 months later, but you work it out. That then goes to the PVC, which then comes down, and there's a valve in each bin that allows us to control what bins are on and which bins are off. The only one off will be the one that has been on for about 60 days, and then we turn it off and let it set. That lets it finish the composting process. Speaking of compost, we pretty much put everything in here that's compostable. From kitchen scraps that you normally think of to meats, like things they tell you can't put in regular compost bins, like oils, meats, that kind of thing. You can actually put into these bins. Theoretically, you can put large bones in here. We haven't tried that one, but hey, we can try hiding a body someday, maybe. But anyway, you can compost a lot of things in these that you can't do in normal because the temperatures do get so high. So again, more things for you to play with your compost bins. One of the keys to good composting is managing your browns, your greens, and your moisture. We talked about the moisture a little bit. The ideal is that when you pick it up, it feels like a well wrung out sponge. We don't always do the greatest job managing that, some of it because we have it open to the air, and like right now in Florida, it's the rainy season, so we get 1.5 inches of rain every day, yay! But you can manage it really well by combining your stall cleanings, which are a pretty good ratio, to be honest, of browns and greens, with manure being the green and the bedding being the brown. And yard clippings, if you've trimmed trees or trimmed more likely bushes, not the woody bits, but more of like the leaves. Grass clippings were great to add to these to add moisture and greens. You can just think of whatever you've got around that you want to put in there that'll then go out to fertilize your fields. So we all make tons of manure. This is just a great way for us to deal with it and have it add back to the farm. The one thing you may be able to see behind me is there's quite a bit of flies in the air. We disturbed the bins just before we started filming this section, and we kind of scared all the gnats up. We don't really mind if we have our bugs back here on our compost bins. When they lay their eggs in here, the temperatures are going to kill them. So I would much rather that they get attracted and they lay their eggs back here on our compost bins than anywhere else on the farm. It helps keep our populations way down. The other thing that really likes our compost bins that we talked about earlier is soldier flies, and we also talked about it in our fly management episode. But soldier flies love our compost bins, and soldier flies eat baby flies. So happy day for the soldier flies is what you're looking for. When we pulled the bin open that you guys saw us doing the emptying of, we were talking about how dry it was. That was 2 weeks ago from today. Thanks to some technical difficulties, we're having to refilm this part of it. And the rainy season happened between then and now. So Florida went from no rain to rain every afternoon for about 30 minutes of absolute downpour. So it makes it challenging to manage, but I will still say even with minimal input from us, the compost bins do really well. Hope you guys enjoyed this video on how we set up our compost to handle the prodigious amounts of manure that horses love to create. If you've got questions, as always, drop them down below. If you're looking at this in real time, we'll have the behavior question and answer with Dr. Wickens coming up. She also has a bit of a compost love, so if you have some questions, she can help you answer those as well. I'll be honest with you, we're probably going to look up the answer to a lot of your questions because this has been a labor of love and trial and error, for sure, heavy on the error. But if you've got questions, put them down below. We'll do our best. Thank you so much for being patrons. We can't do what we do without you guys.